Hey, it's Chuck. At number one, the most beautiful uniform in all of sport. If they brought back the gray stripes, this thing is so far out in front of everybody, you can't touch it. We are not bemoaning the noon kickoff. We are now owning it. It's a badge of honor. We're the lunatic fringe that defines our coach's legacy when it comes to this game. They don't get to define that outside the family. So we're cut from a different cloth for Ohioans. Do I want Michigan to beat Oklahoma? No way in hell. I don't know what world I'm living in. This is insane to me. And if you saw my outburst, I apologize. It's showtime now. It is showtime. Appreciate you so much for joining me. It is Chuck on Bucks on a Monday morning. And yes, we will definitely be going live tonight at 8 p.m. on Buckeye Huddle Prime Time, as we do every Monday and Wednesday at 8. But we got plenty to talk about here on a Monday morning because I think we learned a lot of things week 4 that we need to address. We got to talk about the Big Ten. Things are incredibly different in the Big Ten. Not your dad's Big Ten. I don't think it's 2 years ago's Big Ten. The Buckeyes schedule annually is going to be so much different than it was 2 years ago. And I'm going to show you the schedule 2 years ago versus next year. It's something. It's a whole lot different. And unfortunately, I've come around to accepting something in the Big Ten that I was hoping I would not have to. We will get to that. The Buckeyes land a big commitment. I think I might have a little bit of a different spin on this than some of you guys. But let's all take a minute to like the show, share the show, tell a friend. I appreciate you guys so much. An inordinate amount reached out this weekend via email or Twitter. Sometimes I do an episode that I don't know. I don't know what it was, but I had a lot of people saying, hey, man, really like the show. And I always appreciate those messages. So thank you to you guys. We're going for 20,000 subs. That is a massive goal for me, and we are on our way, just past 19,000. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so. I really can't stand a bye week so early in the season. We had one last year at this time too. It's like you're just getting into the flow of the college football season, and then boom, everything gets shut down for a week. But it's over now, and I think that we had a fantastic week of football, and we learned a lot. Also, some incredibly good storylines that came out of the weekend, and we will hit on those. But the Buckeyes, obviously, 3 games in the books. Everything's looking fantastic. And you got this game this Saturday in Seattle. Ohio State opened as a 9.5-point favorite, and that surprised me. I was thinking they were going to be closer to a 14 or 15-point favorite. The Washington Huskies are 3-0. They beat Colorado State in game 1, then Cal State Fullerton. Then they just won the Apple Cup against Washington State. Now, Washington State is a rival of theirs, and I think Washington won like 59-24. But the week prior, Washington State had played North Texas, and they lost that game 59-10. So we're not talking about a normal Washington State team like many of us have known over the years. This is a different caliber of team. That said, I still watch that Apple Cup maybe 1.5 times at this point. And the offense for Washington, there's a lot of things that'll translate. There's a lot of things that will translate against the Buckeyes. There's some that won't. And we'll go over that in detail tomorrow. But the Buckeyes with the best defense in the country, and Washington with an offense that's definitely going to give them fits in some ways. I really believe that. Fortunately, I think the Buckeyes offense is pretty doggone good, and I don't think Washington's defense can match them. However, they've got the equalizer. They've got the crowd. They've got the home field advantage. That'll help limit Ohio State. There's 2 schools of thought here with Washington that I'm kind of seeing out there in the Buckeye sphere. Part of me wants to say, dude, what are we talking about here? Ohio State's the number 1 team in the country with the best coaching staff in the country, one of the fastest defenses they've ever had, and a week of rest. They're going to go out there and kick in the door on these dudes and give them a proper welcome to the Big Ten that their rival did not give them when they went out there last year and lost. But then there's the other part of me that's looking at these guys and going, yeah, I think that'll translate. That might translate. That might give us some fits. So it's, I don't know, I'm on the fence here about how concerned I should be about this game. Then you got the venue, the other stadium on the West Coast that's known for a crazy, loud, wild environment. In fact, my buddy Ryan Winters, Sports Chat 503, it is a Oregon Ducks channel, and I've been on it many times. He's a season ticket holder, and he reluctantly admitted to me one time that the loudest football game he's ever been to was a Ducks-Washington game at Husky Stadium. And he said it was louder than Autzen. It's uniquely designed. There's they built it on a really small plot of land. And of course, it's beautiful. You've all seen the pictures. It's right on the lake, and they bring the boats up and they sailgate, they call it, which is awesome. It looks gorgeous. It's a stadium I'd love to go to. But it was built on a small plot of land, so they built it straight up. And the rise of the upper deck stands is extremely vertical, as vertical as you'll find in the country, particularly on the north side, which holds 20 more rows than the south side in the same footprint, meaning the north side is even more vertical than the south. Puts the fans closer to the field. And then to boot, they've got metal roofs on top, which one of them collapsed in 1987, not at a game, thankfully. But they cover both the north and the south stands, and they project the noise back down. Now, in 1992, and there's a little YouTube video of this game, just the highlights, 4-minute highlights. In 1992, Nebraska goes out to Washington, and it is the loudest recorded college game ever at 133.6 decibels. And we talk about the sound not coming through on Ohio State's broadcast when they're on Fox sometimes. Like, hey, I was at that game. It was loud. And then I watched it on TV later. It didn't sound loud at all during the times when I know it was really loud. I have never in my life heard sound come through on a telecast like that clip from that 1992 Nebraska-Washington game. I'd encourage anybody to look it up. I'd play it for you, but they'd yank it out of here. But they did set the record, the loudest ever. And Nebraska at the time obviously was awesome. In Washington, their fans were hyped. This game certainly fits that bill, right? You got the number one team coming into their place, and they're in year 2 of a rebuild that's gone very, very well. So it's going to be a raucous environment if Ohio State lets them. Now, Ohio State and Washington have met 12 times in the history of the programs. Bucks hold a 9-3 advantage. Currently, Ohio State on a 4-game winning streak, and the Buckeyes have been out to Husky Stadium 6 times. 6 times, which surprised me. I would have guessed probably 3 or 4, but 6 times, a lot of trips out there, and Ohio State does have a winning record out there, 4-2. Last Tuesday, when I was down at the Woody, Brian Hartline was speaking about his most recent, or his only trip out there in 2007. 2007, Tress and the Buckeyes went out there, and Hartline caught 6 balls for 88 yards and a touchdown. Ohio State won that game 33-14. And Hartline basically said we didn't really give the crowd much of a chance to get into it, so they didn't have to deal with it at all. And obviously the Bucks are hoping for the same type of deal here. But at the same time, you got to be cautious. You got to be cautious for sure. And here's one of our Duck eyes here, Billy McBride. As a Duck fan, if Autzen played a factor last year, then Husky Stadium for sure will. So there you have it. But hopefully the Buckeyes can take the crowd out of that thing early. Oh, Hartline also said that he remembers catching a fish at that famous what is it, Pike Place Fish Market in Seattle, which everybody goes and tries to catch that fish. He caught his fish. But they're going to try to keep Julian Sayin out of that pressure cooker, right? Hopped up crowd, huge goal to try to keep the crowd out of it. But at the same time, you don't want to put too much on his plate as a freshman. You need the running game to work. You need the running game to work. And so far this year, Washington has given up less than 3 yards a carry. Buckeyes running game has looked pretty good at times, not so good at times. And this is going to be a game where we really would love to see the Ohio State offensive line take control of this thing and get that running game pumping. I've been really impressed with what Jed Fish has done. I was impressed with what he did at Arizona in 3 years, making them, a really good team in 3 years. But what he's done at Washington just now in year 2, after taking over from a team that was decimated, when Kalen DeBoer took him to the national championship in 2023, then when he left, he took a bunch of guys with him. You saw a bunch of guys go to the NFL and a bunch of guys just, run out of eligibility. And Fish comes in and they were stripped. They were terrible. They had no talent. He was not shy about it. He said it many times last year. The Huskies won every single home game in his first year, and that included wins over USC and Michigan. They finished 4-5 in the Big Ten, 6-6 overall in the regular season, and then they lost in the Tony the Tiger Bowl. The Tony the Tiger Bowl, 35-34 to finish with a 6-7 record in his first campaign. But this year's team looks much different, including a tweak to the uniform. By the way, the Husky uniforms on the official top 10 of the Buckeye rankings, I love the color combination. They're purple. It's a little more skewed towards blue than red, and the combination of that with the old gold, I think, is just gorgeous. I like the W. It all works for me. It always has. How are you feeling about this game? Did you watch the Apple Cup, and have you seen DeMond Williams, who was a lot of the talk in the offseason? That's their quarterback, who I compared to Kyler Murray a couple weeks ago. And then Matt Patricia did after me, and Ryan Day also did as well. But there's a lot of people that I'm seeing are really stressed about this game, and there are others who are kind of scoffing at it. Though I think the scoffers are ones that usually scoff at pretty much every Ohio State game, like we're the Buckeyes, we're going to win. I know it's not a trap game, though I have seen that thrown around a lot. I know it's not a trap game because a trap game, by definition, is not a game that has Ohio State's full attention, and this one certainly has their full attention. They were talking about it last Tuesday. Matt Patricia had already been reviewing film on them. It is a hell of a test, I think. And whether the Buckeyes go out there and blow them out or not, I think it's still a hell of a test. You got a young quarterback, the venue, the quality of team. Like, what's the recipe when we see the number one team in the country get upset? A quarterback with a sky-high ceiling is usually present from the opponent, and you got that in DeMond Williams. A big-time home field advantage, you definitely got that in Husky Stadium. Traveling across a couple of time zones always helps for that upset. How about a freshman quarterback? That certainly could lend someone to think that might be an upset. And that's why people are nervous about it. Like, there's a lot of indicators that could make you say, hold on, this is a dangerous game. And this is a team with not just DeMond Williams, but with skill position dudes that are like NFL guys for sure. Like Jonah Williams, the running back, who a lot of you probably watched him against Michigan last year. He was awesome. He's built like Maurice Jones-Drew, short, stocky, tough to bring down. They got another one, a backup who's a little bit bigger, and he looks like an NFL dude named Muhammad. And then their wide receiver, Denzel Boston, no relation to David Boston. His arms are too small. Without a doubt, an NFL dude. For sure. So we're talking NFL skill position guys, and they've also got a secondary that features large humans. We're talking 2 6'4" corners. Where the hell did you get these guys? Just doing a brand new rebuild. I don't know, but they look legit. They look legit. Now there are some holes in the roster. Definitely. You can see there are going to be some mismatches, as the Buckeyes are very solid all the way across the board. And we'll talk about some of those mismatches on tomorrow's show. But indicators all over the place that give you pause. So we're going to go in on Washington a little deeper tomorrow. What do they do best? Where could they give the Buckeyes fits? How might the Buckeyes game plan against them? And where does Ohio State match up well? So, of course, we will go down to the press conference tomorrow, and Dylan and I will talk after that. I'm sure we'll get into that a little more as well with Washington. But we got to talk about the conference with which the Buckeyes play. We got to talk about this Big Ten, which is a very, very different Big Ten. But first, I got a few thoughts on some of the games that made up what I thought was a fantastic weekend. I've heard some others were disappointed. Listen, last year, the Buckeyes had it was either week 3 or week 4 bye week to start off the season. And it was like the worst slate of games ever, like the absolute worst possible. We had a ton of games Saturday to watch. One of which, the game of the week in the SEC, Oklahoma and Auburn, and Oklahoma won 24-17. A lot of people were stumping for Auburn as a really good team this year. They gave up 10 sacks, and Jackson Arnold couldn't do anything in his return to Oklahoma, seeking vengeance. And despite having 2 of the best wide receivers in college football, passed for just 220 yards. Cam Coleman is amazing, just 3 receptions. But they were able to hold John Mateer to 29 yards rushing, the Oklahoma quarterback. That's kind of a recipe to beat them, and they weren't able to do it. Now, Mateer was the front runner for the Heisman going into the weekend. He is not anymore. Somebody has taken his place, and we will go over that in a few. Oklahoma's defense is nasty. They're really, really nasty. One of the best defenses in the country, that's for sure. And that is a potential team, if they can manage to get through their ridiculously hard schedule, that could be some competition for the Buckeyes in the playoffs. But the greatest story of this game is a controversial penalty that was not called, that I think was absolutely hilarious. Oklahoma sends a guy looking like he's going to go off the field, and he pulls the old stand on the sideline, his team's sideline, and make it look like he went off the field. Of course, he didn't. snap the ball, throw it to him for a touchdown, which is illegal in the SEC. Should have been a penalty. And after the game, they come out, the SEC does, and says, yeah, they made a penalty. And obviously they're going to discipline the crew that let that stand. But Oklahoma won by a touchdown. So the Auburn fans are reasonably furious. And I'm trying to think, like, what would we do in that situation if you lost by a touchdown and it was over that, right? Now, you can say there's a million different ways you could have still won the game. And, I get it, but that's a tough one to swallow. Also tough when you had Auburn plus 6.5 and you lost by a half a point. 5-5. I had a 5-5 weekend, guys. We are still 7 games under 500, which is just terrible, but we'll get it back next week. Missouri with Bo Pribula. Drew Allar's backup leaves Penn State, goes down to Missouri, looking awesome. They beat South Carolina, who is now 0-2 and cooked. South Carolina out of playoff consideration. They're done. Forget about them. Also, Lenoris Sellers, a big threat to the Heisman. Listen, a lot of my rooting interest right now early on in the season is I'm rooting for guys to get knocked off the Heisman list because I want JJ to win the Heisman. Or Julian. Hey, either one can win the Heisman, but I think it's JJ's year. Anyway, Lenoris Sellers is gone. We can forget about him. He's off. Mighty Arkansas. Now, I don't know if you guys are hip to this argument, but for years, SEC honks would go around saying, and they always use Arkansas in this example. They would say, what would happen if we took Arkansas and Arkansas just went and moved into the Big 12 for a year or the Big 10 or the ACC? How would Arkansas, one of the cellar dwellers in our conference, do in your conference? And they would say, well, we think they win like 8-9 games. They might be one of the best in the conference. They always said it. Now, they got to have that happen last year as they went into Oklahoma State and lost to a very bad Oklahoma State team. And then this past weekend, Arkansas went to take on the AAC, Memphis. They went up to play Memphis and they lost to Memphis. And we are seeing a lot of these hypothetical SEC arguments that they love to make kind of get their chance to happen, and it's not working out so well for them. Sam Pittman, one of the nicest coaches in college football, going to lose his job probably, and that's not great, but not good enough at Arkansas. Miami and Florida. Miami getting a ton of buzz heading into this week as the number 1 team instead of Ohio State. They end up beating Florida 26-7 in a game that was much closer down towards the end of the game, but close on the scoreboard, not so much on the field, as I think Florida had like 32 yards of offense at halftime. Just pathetic. Absolutely pathetic are the Gators, who, remember, a lot of people had in the playoffs, just like Auburn. They were hyping up Florida. I have no idea why. Miami has now beaten Notre Dame. Then they beat a ranked USF team. And now they beat Florida, who for some reason a lot of people had a lot of respect for. It's a good resume. But Carson Beck looked like trash against Florida. 17 for 30, 5.3 yards of completion, no touchdowns, a really bad interception. And they ran the ball for just 4.3 yards a carry. The Florida defense is good. They're not that good. It looks like Billy Napier is finally going to get his just due and get fired. And I think about the amount of 4 years now and tons of money they've invested into Billy's vision. Clearly not going to work, man. This guy can't even manage the clock in year 4. And there is a specific Buckeye recruit who committed to Florida that we have got to talk about. We might talk about that in the recruiting show. I'm going to do a little later on. And Terry says, Indiana impressed me. I must say, indictment on Illinois. I don't know. We will get to that. Anyway, Heather Dinich of ESPN does a poll every week where she tries to guess where the committee is going to come out with their first rankings. And she has put Miami over Ohio State for the number 1 spot. Of course, the AP poll has come out. Buckeyes retained their number 1 spot in the AP poll. And I know it's like all the rage to totally trash the AP poll. So I've kind of laid off of it a little bit because it's like, all right, everybody's got that covered. I don't want to do a bunch of repeat content. We get it. The thing is, there's a lot of people who seem to think this is like a new thing, that the AP poll voting is all jacked up. Yeah, some of us have been in this game a long time, man. It's always been a lot of contradictions and ridiculous logic that make up the AP poll. One in particular that really bothers me this week is when we look at Penn State. Penn State's still sitting at number 3. They've yet to record a Power 4 win. And everybody else in the top 10 has, except for Texas. Texas sits at number 10. No Power 4 win, but they got a loss. I don't know if like Texas's resume is like, objectively speaking, if we're just talking about a resume, is Texas's resume better than Penn State's? Penn State's played 3 cream puffs. They haven't even looked impressive doing it. Texas at least beat or almost 14-7 at Ohio State. They mollywopped whoever they played last week, Sam Houston. It's like, I don't know, man. Penn State getting a lot of respect holding on to that number 3 ranking when everybody else behind them has at least one P4 win. And I think that is honestly a good sign for the Big Ten. It's a good sign for the Big Ten and for fans of Big Ten teams when you see Penn State remaining at number 3, having not beaten a single, like we're through 4 weeks now, and they haven't beaten a P4 team. This is similar to Ohio State last year, remember? Going through the early part of the year, having not played a P4 team and then having a bye week. It's actually the exact same situation we were in. Arch Manning in Texas, they did beat Sam Houston State 55-0. Arch had his first good game, and he was feeling himself. And I don't want to get down on the young guy, but he did something that I thought was a really terrible look. He scored a touchdown running, and he kind of flexed on a dude. And it's like, you're flexing on a kid from Sam Houston, man. And that's just not tough to me. That's fake tough guy stuff. Of course, somebody loved it. You know, it had to be JD Pickle. I mean, they absolutely loved it. This is the guy that told us this is third year Matt Rule, when Matt Rule in Nebraska barely beat Cincinnati. I think that's a horrible look for Arch. Speaking of JD Pickle, some of you guys tagged me about Josh Pate over the weekend. Josh Pate did have Connor Stallions on stage with him at the Bustin' with the Boys live show. I'll talk about it at the end of the show. Scott Frost back at UCF beats Bill Belichick 34-9. And this is not going good for the smartest guys in college football at North Carolina. The NFL's 33rd team, as Mike Lombardi, the GM, said they were going to be. They came in so arrogant, thinking they were so much smarter than everyone in college football. They were so pompous, and they are so flippin' terrible. But I got to be honest, guys, when we talk about this North Carolina story, I thought that it was going to be like Colorado. I thought that everybody was going to be interested in this, and it is clear nobody seems to give a damn. Like, this thing's not even moving the needle. The biggest part about this story the entire time has been nothing but his girlfriend. And even that's kind of faded off, right? Like, they're doing an Amazon Prime where they're going to be following Carolina around. I don't know when that airs, but it doesn't seem too interesting at all. So I don't know. I'll check it out maybe once or twice, but it doesn't seem like it's something anybody's going to watch. And before we get to the Big Ten, which we will in just a moment, I love poetic justice. Early last week, everybody saw, I think it was Tuesday, Dabo Swinney came out at his press conference after starting off 1-2, losing in 1-score games to both LSU at home, then down in Atlanta to Georgia Tech in a game that wasn't as close on the field as it was on the scoreboard. Loses those games and then comes down and gives his press conference on Tuesday. On Friday's show, I told a story about the only Clemson game I ever went to, which was against Syracuse. And Syracuse that day, vastly overmatched, took them to overtime. Well, this weekend, Syracuse came back down to Clemson, and they were getting 16.5 points. That was obviously the play all along. And I'm watching the score as Saturday's rolling around. Syracuse jumps out to a big lead, and I'm getting excited. Then there's a weather delay. And I said to my son, good, let them stew on this. And, of course, you know what happened after the weather delay is Syracuse ends up beating Clemson. Personally, I just couldn't wait for the press conference. I could not wait to see the press conference because I was so turned off by what he said on Tuesday. The way he did it, it was so cocky and arrogant and unbecoming with the gyrations of a preacher. And the difference in this guy from the guy who started at Clemson, just his personality, to the guy that we see now with the swollen head and the massive ego, I just find this guy so unlikable. He used to be so humble with just tons of energy and positivity. And now he comes across like an arrogant jerk every time I see him. And everything he said at that press conference Tuesday, he already had locked and loaded. He had it locked and loaded, and he wanted to come in and scold all the Clemson supporters and boosters who were irritated, rightfully so. They came in thinking that they were going to potentially compete for a national championship this year, and they're sitting 1-2. So he comes in, recites all his accomplishments that were all in the past, that nobody believes current Dabo Swinney can lead Clemson to anymore. He's not taking this team to a national championship the way he operates. It's clear that he doesn't even know his team, because he's got a team with vastly superior athletes to Syracuse, and he can't even beat them. So 5 days later, after losing to Syracuse, after his cocky press conference, he comes to take the podium post-game, and boy, what a change in tune we have.
But I'm going to go somewhere else and coach. If they want me gone, if they tired of winning, they can send me on their way, because that's all we've done is win. So if they tired of winning, we've won this league 8 out of the last 10 years. Is that not good? I'm just asking. Is that good? I don't know if that's good or not. To win your league 8 out of 10 years, to go to the playoffs 7 out of 10 years, to be in 4 national championships, win it twice.
You want to talk about a change of tune. Just 4 days later, here's Dabo after the embarrassing loss to Syracuse. Clemson's first 1-3 start since 2004.
Disappointed, painful. Hurt. I'm human. I'm not a cyborg. This is my life, man. I hurt. I've invested my life here, and when I don't get the job done, I'm responsible, and I feel the pain. It's not just my pain. I feel everybody's pain. I just hurt. I hurt. I hurt obviously just because I take pride in what I do. I hurt for our team, hurt for our fans.
That is called getting your comeuppance. The days of Clemson competing for national championships with Dabo Swinney are done. They're done. He's averaged the 15th ranked recruiting class over the last 4 years. 15, 1 5-star per cycle. He's taken just 3 transfer portal players since the advent of the transfer portal.
It's really pretty simple. Most of the guys in the portal aren't good enough to play for us.
Yeah.
And this puts Clemson fans in an unbelievably tough spot, because he's also someone who's done something no other coach has done in my lifetime. He took a good program and made them a national power. And now they're just a good program again. But they've tasted what it feels like to be a national power, and they won it again. But it's never going to happen with him. What are they going to do at Clemson? There's only one thing to do, because he's not changing. He's not changing. Honestly, I want to feel compassion for a guy that's melting down like that, right? But then I just think back earlier in the week, that arrogant preacher, it's just like, dude, you are so out of touch with what's going on here. What I've always said I love about being an Ohio State fan is there are some things we never have to worry about. And one of those things is we can always count on the program and the administration and everything around Ohio State, making sure that they are competing with the best of the best in every single area, coaches' salaries, whatever it may be. And what is happening at Clemson could never happen at Ohio State. What he's getting away with could never happen. And what I mean is he does it his way. He does it his way. The lack of transfers, just everything he does is his way. It's his program. It's not like that at Ohio State. It is Ohio State's program, and the head coach is the steward of this behemoth that's been built with 150 years of history. At Clemson, it's his. And I don't know what they do, but they're currently an also-ran in the ACC. I think they're like 8-7 in their last 15 games. And this is the worst position you could be in as a fan. Like, it's the absolute worst. If you just put yourself in their shoes, it's like, yeah, this man is the guy you want to build a statue of. Like, when I took my kids there, taking them to Clemson to watch a game was like my dad taking me to Nebraska when I was a kid. Like, think about that, because when I was a kid, Clemson wasn't anything. And he did that, but his program now looks like it's on the Nebraska track, like it's going that direction. And he's right. He's only 55 and he doesn't want to do anything else. He wants to keep coaching and he does love Clemson. I believe that. But I think that this guy actually, his head is so big that he looks back. He's averaging, like I said, the 15th ranked recruiting class. He looks at the success that he's had, the national championships that he's won, and he doesn't think that it is because he had elite talent. He doesn't think it's because of Trevor and Deshaun and the elite receivers they had and the culture. He thinks it's all because of him. He thinks he did it all. And he doesn't realize that it's that elite talent that he also needs. But in addition to that, he's got a bigger problem now because they're not even playing for him. Now, personally, I don't believe any coach this day and age should be at a place longer than 15 years. I think that's how you end up with a situation like a Bobby Bowden, a Joe Paterno, where the last 8 years of their tenure are just like, man, how do we get rid of the guy? How do we get him out of here? Things are clearly stale. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's not keeping up. Is Dabo just reaching that early? Like, not that he's old, but he's just so out of touch and so out of date. I don't know, but it's very difficult to push him out when he just made the playoffs last year because of the very weak ACC. But nothing's going to change here. The results aren't going to change either. And I, for one, am not sad about it, man. The guy is getting his comeuppance, and I love it. Now, let's talk about the Big Ten. And I want to be straight up, man. Like the Big Ten, not the same as it was just a couple years ago. I don't even think it's Friday's Big Ten. And I have talked to you guys a lot over the last year and a half, really wanting the Big Ten kind of on a national circuit, the media in general and fans of other conferences, particularly in the South, to give the Big Ten the respect you feel it deserves. But for 15 years, the Big Ten had one program who could compete for national championships, and that's Ohio State, and that's the way everybody looked at it. At the same time, you had the SEC winning like 6 different programs winning a national championship. We had one in the Big Ten. You had Clemson and Florida State also in the ACC win a national championship, but as far as the Big Ten, Ohio State, we were on our own. Ohio State was on its own in the Big Ten. And when we look at the Big Ten now, like it just didn't measure into comparison back then. Now we've got these programs who didn't formerly investing, programs who didn't formerly care about football are caring. Back then it was Penn State and Michigan that Ohio State had to beat every year. Sometimes a Michigan State or a Wisconsin would pop up, and times have clearly changed unbelievably fast due to conference expansion and the Big Ten TV deal. Those coming at the same time as NIL and the transfer portal, we've seen drastic and fast improvements to many teams and to the conference as a whole. And now, like, it is a totally different experience as an Ohio State fan and as an Ohio State football program than it was just 2 years ago. Let's take a look at the Big Ten games this week. And then I want to take a look at the Big Ten at Ohio State's schedule from 2023 versus 2026, and just look at how different this is for the Buckeyes as they move forward. We'll start with Maryland, who headed to Wisconsin, a 10-point underdog. Not going to spend much time on this, but Luke Fickell, guys, I don't know what to say, man. This guy's going to be an underdog in the rest of the games on his schedule, and a 2-10 season is possible here in year number 3. Year number 3. This is a picture from Camp Randall. Tell me I got it loaded. Camp Randall on Saturday, where Fickell and the boys lost again to Maryland as a 10-point favorite, and fans who were there, and there weren't many, were chanting "Fire Fickell." And if you'd have told me back then when they hired him that it was not going to work out, I'd have argued, tooth and nail with you. Like, this is Luke Fickell, man. He knows defense. By the way, the monofilament turf there is beautiful. And notice how they fill all the concrete in with the turf. I love that look. I'd love to get that done at Ohio State. But something I would never have guessed. And I don't have a problem with what Luke Fickell did with the offense. I know a lot of people said, why would you ever get away from what Wisconsin does best, right? He went away from it because he had national championship aspirations. He wanted to turn it into a place that could contend for national championships. And you can't do that playing that classic Barry Alvarez Wisconsin style football. You can't. But it failed miserably because he didn't have the athletes to get it done. So now he's reverting back to the old style Wisconsin just to try to save his job. He didn't have but one single 300-pounder on the roster heading into this year. And I don't know why, because they've got money. They just don't have any athletes that are worthy of a Wisconsin team on the team. I mean, it's terrible. It's a terrible team. His buyout is enormous. So does anything change? Do they see somebody come try to pay that buyout and get rid of Fickell? I don't know. Purdue lost to Notre Dame 56-30. And the only reason I'm bringing that up is because we already talked about Arkansas losing to Memphis. Notre Dame, 56-13. I'm sorry. Notre Dame breaks down Syracuse. And I'm looking at the lines this morning, and Notre Dame only a 6.5-point favorite against Arkansas this weekend. And I don't get it. If any of you guys can explain to me why that is, let me know. Otherwise, Notre Dame looks like free money. Michigan State went out to USC, and USC beat them 45-31. USC offense looking great, defense looking not so great like always. But I watched most of this game because I really wanted to see USC this year playing against a decent opponent. And they're pretty impressive. It was 31-24 heading into the fourth quarter. But outside of the score, like, it really wasn't close. It didn't feel close at any point. Michigan State might score. USC would just go score again, right? The next possession. Total yards were like 523 to 300. It just never felt in doubt. But USC clearly has talent. They got a running back, Wayman Jordan. I think he's from JUCO. This guy was amazing. 8.7 yards a carry. Second time I watched him this year. He is electric. Eli Sanders is pretty good as well. Quarterback Jaden Mayava is pretty damn good, man. This guy's really good. Obviously, they got two really good receivers. Mekhi Lemon had 127 yards. They got weapons. And as we know, they've got next year coming in the number one recruiting class. They're going to bring in more pieces from the portal. And I really think that next year they may be a serious playoff contender. Right now, I think they're loosely a playoff contender. Like, if we just look at their schedule real quick, they're at Illinois next week, which is a huge game now that doesn't look so tough anymore. Or does it? Then they welcome in Michigan, which is going to be an unbelievable game. Michigan heads out to USC in 2 Saturdays. Then they've got Notre Dame. But let's say they beat Illinois and they split between Michigan and Notre Dame. The rest of the way, all they got to do is beat Nebraska, Northwestern, and Iowa before they got Oregon and UCLA. So if they can beat Illinois and split Notre Dame, Michigan, they can lose to Oregon. And if they handle their business, they're 10-2. They're a playoff team with the arrow pointed straight up. Even if they lose to both Notre Dame and Michigan and Oregon, they're a 9-3 team with the number one recruiting class coming in, a really good returning quarterback, and things are looking sensational moving forward. And when we look at this program, like, it really does look like last year. Maybe they lost a lot of fluky games. Maybe they figured out how to win them. Remember, we talked about all their one-score games they lost last year. But I don't think they're far off from 26, 27, being like kind of all the way back to a perennial top 15, top 10 program every year. And clearly, they're not following the rules, right? They're spending a ridiculous amount of money. It's going unchecked. The CSC, which is the enforcement wing of the House settlement, still not enforcing any rules because they're not technically stated yet. And it's just a spend fest, man. They've got like 35 recruits, the number one recruiting class. They're getting everybody they want, pumping money into the program. And that will take you a long way, as we saw with Texas Tech at Utah. Texas Tech was kind of like the big, how's this going to look, right? Can you just go buy a bunch of better players, and will they come together enough to make it work? Yeah, they were better than Utah in every single area. And now we're seeing it at a real blue blood program at USC. And it's different, man. It's a different SC. They feel different. What about Oregon? Oregon beat Oregon State in the Civil War 41-7. Dante Moore is sensational. The guy's arm is just fantastic. We don't know how he'll be when he gets in a tight game. We'll find out soon enough. We'll find out soon enough as we've got the helmets out. The helmets are behind us for the big matchups in the Big Ten next week. We've got Oregon, Penn State. We've got Washington, Ohio State. And they had a couple backs that looked really good. Freshmen, right? Jordan Davison, who the Buckeyes were in on a lot of the cycle last year. He went 6 for 34 for 5.7 and a touchdown. I think that's the second week in a row he had a touchdown. Maybe not. Maybe second, 2 out of 3. But freshman De'Aaron Hill is the star there. Carlos Loughlin was in on De'Aaron Hill out of Illinois, and he ends up signing at Oregon. I love that kid. He is awesome. Bo Jackson and De'Aaron Hill would have been an unbelievable combo. But De'Aaron Hill averaged just 5 yards a carry. He took one to the house against Northwestern that was just a fantastic run. He's next level. Freshman wide receiver Decorian Moore, 3 receptions for 63 yards and a touchdown. Kenyon Sadiq, their tight end, is a freak show, total freak show, 4 for 60. 5-star Jeremiah McClellan in the first couple of weeks has had, I think, almost 100 yards in 2 consecutive weeks until this most recent game. But he's looking really good. So they seem to have wide receiver figured out. They've got pass catching options. They're looking really good. By the way, Decorian Moore, their best player, 2 punt returns for 30 total yards. And I don't know, man. Everybody can return a punt at Ohio State. Then we go to the Michigan-Nebraska game, which we streamed live here during that game. Nebraska, not tough enough to compete. They could not win at the line of scrimmage at all. Michigan beat them 30-27 somehow. It wasn't near that close. And Dylan Raiola is mid as hell, man. That kid is more concerned with looking like a superstar than playing like a superstar quarterback. And I am so over this guy. I'm so happy he didn't commit to Ohio State. Obviously, he wouldn't act like that all the way if he was at Ohio State, but he certainly has that in him. His stat line looked pretty good, right? 308 yards. On the flip side, Bryce Underwood was just 12 for 22 for 100 yards. Completion percentage was, or not completion percentage, but yards per completion was under 5 yards a completion. He did rush the ball 8 times for 61 yards. Mr. Ohio football, Jordan Marshall, busted off a 54-yarder in a very, it's so irritating, man, because Tony Alford screwed up his recruitment at Ohio State, and then he winds up with him at Michigan. I think Marshall's a really good back, but it's Justice Haynes who stole the show. That dude looks like the best back in the country through the first 4 games of the year. 17 for 149. Guy has 4 touchdowns of over 50-plus yards. And, of course, we talked the other day about Ohio State being in talks with him in the transfer portal and why they didn't get him, which we may delve into that maybe later on this week, not just him specifically, but as we move on further in the transfer portal area. There's really only two years that Ohio State's been very active in the transfer portal and bringing in transfer portal classes. And now that there's going to be just one portal window, it's going to be really important to nail it. And I think it's important to kind of look back. All right, how do we get here? Why did we get to these needs? And how do you, what's the best way to spend your budget? How did they do it? What mistakes were made? It all just really fascinates me. So I'll make it a separate show because I know not everybody's interested in that. Anyway, the way Michigan wins these games is so annoying. It is so annoying because you look at these guys play offense and you're like, there's no way that team is going to win. And then they do it. They do it. They grind it out. They break off big runs. And if they can consistently do this while Underwood just gets slowly better in the passing game, which should happen a little bit this year, should take a big jump into next year, Michigan, a formidable program. And when we look at what they got coming up, they've got Wisconsin, easy dub. Then they got USC at USC, which will be awesome. They got Washington at home. And then that's their next big test until the game. So essentially, if they split those two, they need to run through Michigan State, Purdue, Northwestern, and Maryland. And if they do that, they will be hosting Ohio State with a playoff spot on the line. And if we're just going by the odds, that's what's going to happen. They'll be the favorites in all those games, except for Oregon. And I don't know yet about USC. So to be quite honest, what do you want at this point? I kind of love Ryan Day having the opportunity to go up there, end the streak, and have a little extra juice on that, the stakes of keeping them out of the playoffs. So I don't know. Not that I could ever root for them, but I certainly wouldn't mind if they were 9-2 when Ohio State went up in there and put those extra stakes on it. All right, Day, you win, you knock these guys out. You lose, they're getting in the playoffs. I think our guy is going to conquer the challenge this time. And then, of course, we got Indiana. Indiana absolutely destroyed Illinois. I thought they were going to win by 2 touchdowns, is what I said on Friday's show. I didn't think that this summer. I was thinking Illinois was going to be a little more of the class of the Big Ten than Indiana. And I changed my mind after watching the first couple of weeks of this season, even just watching Indiana in the key plays against Indiana State last week. I know the competition is whatever, but just watching that offense operate with Mendoza, like, I hate Kurt Signetti, so I actively root against them. And I let that sometimes cloud my analysis of the team. And I think I did that over the summer. But watching Mendoza, he's clearly better than Curtis Rourke. He just is. And he fits in so well. By the way, he is now the number 1 odds-on favorite to win the Heisman in the ever volatile, ever-changing Heisman market. He throws a beautiful ball. He's accurate. He's got weapons. Their line's held up. I thought it was hilarious. Nicole Auerbach tweeted on Saturday night, nobody was talking about Fernando Mendoza over the summer. I was like, what? Everybody was talking about this guy, man. Ad nauseum. But he's the dude. And they look really, really good. And when we look at their schedule, they've got Iowa, at Oregon, Michigan State, UCLA, and Maryland. And then they're at Penn State. They finish with Wisconsin and Purdue. So do we think that Iowa's going to give them any issues? I don't. So they essentially got a 2-game season here. They got Oregon and they got Penn State. Now, I didn't think before they could play with Oregon. I do now. I think this is clearly a top 12-ish, top 10-ish team. And that's now going to be a tougher game for Oregon than it was going to be. But let's just say they lose to Oregon and they lose to Penn State, but they handle their business throughout. It's a playoff team again. They can lose them both. And they may beat one. It's way too early to say about Penn State, but we're going to finally find out who this Penn State team is this weekend. And I can't wait. So I'm not going to fight this Indiana thing anymore. It's as real as it comes. It's astonishing. It is one of the great case studies that we'll look back 10 years from now at what they were able to do here in this period. It's pretty phenomenal. And honestly, they keep they're getting real recruits now, right? Like we talked about Jaden Williams out of Massillon, who's recruited to Indiana. That's a kid that I think is an Ohio State caliber kid, and they're getting those type of dudes now. So they're doing it right, man. They're doing it right. And finally, we got Washington, obviously, who won the Apple Cup. So the reason I went through all these games and talked about all these teams is because I want to talk about the Big Ten in general and the realization that all this hooting and hollering and championing of the Big Ten, and I know it's fun when you're arguing with SEC folks as to who's the best and who's this and who's that. The Big Ten is absolutely better than the SEC again this year. I think that's pretty apparent to me. But there is a drawback to that in that these folks aren't in fact on our team. They are the enemy, and the annual road for Ohio State is now a hell of a lot tougher. It's a hell of a lot tougher than I ever could have imagined. There's been a lot of years where we looked at the schedule at the beginning of the year and said, okay, what do we got? We got one out of conference game it's a Virginia Tech type game. Okay, you win that thing, then you got Penn State and Michigan, and that's it. That's your road to the playoffs so long as you handle your business. Don't end up getting caught slipping, right? And some years you would. You get caught slipping to an Iowa, to a Purdue. When we look at the schedule now, it is so much different. And I'm just going to pull up 2023 and take a look at what it looked like in 2023 to get through this Big Ten schedule for Ohio State. In 2023, a crappy Indiana team, let's remember, not a good Indiana team, Youngstown State, Western Kentucky, Notre Dame, that was the big out-of-conference game. Then you had Maryland, garbage. Purdue, garbage. Penn State, that's your second big game. Wisconsin, it's not a good Wisconsin team. Rutgers, that was not a good Rutgers team. Michigan State, that was not a good Michigan State team. Minnesota was an average Minnesota team. And then the game. You had 3 games. And so long as you handled your business, you got to the playoffs. Okay, let's take a look at what it looks like in the Big Ten next year. For the Buckeyes, let me get this stupid banner off. You're in my way. All right, so you got Ball State and Kent State. Let's get rid of those 2. You have got Texas. You've got Indiana. Those are currently 2 top 10 teams in the country, right? You've got Iowa, which is, usually a game. You've got Nebraska. That's a game. Illinois. These are teams in the top half of the Big Ten. Maryland, currently 4-0. You've got the game. You've got Northwestern, which looks like really your only serious gimme in there. And then you've got Oregon and USC. There's like 7 games you need to really buckle down and take seriously. And we're talking in a couple of years' time. Things are totally different in the Big Ten. In 2023, when we look at like Maryland, Purdue, Rutgers, Michigan State, Indiana, those were all like gimmies. Those were nothing. And this is a real deal schedule, man. 4 blue bloods in there. And then Indiana and Oregon on top of that. So it's a different ball game. It's a different ball game. And yeah, the Big Ten, it's the real deal. It's better than the SEC. I put them in tiers this weekend after week 4. Currently, I think that tier 1 has a B. I think that Ohio State and Oregon have Penn State and Indiana right on their heels. So I've got Ohio State and Oregon in tier 1. In tier 1B, I've got Penn State and Indiana. Then tier 2, I've got USC and Blue. In tier 3, I've got Washington on their own. Tier 4, I've got Illinois, Iowa, and Nebraska. And anything after that, I don't give a damn. So that's what it looks like for me. When we look at the SEC, I had this formatted, so I just went ahead and reshuffled. I got Georgia, LSU, Oklahoma, Texas as the top 4 programs in the SEC, followed by Alabama, Missouri, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss. And who gives a damn after that? But the Big Ten at the top, something like we've never seen before. And Ohio State's road to the playoffs, you could say, well, look, it's a lot harder now schedule-wise. But when you go to 16 teams in the playoff or more, by the way, Ross Bjork, giving another interview, which we will talk about either tonight or tomorrow. I've got some thoughts. Stumping again for a 28-team playoff. That's Ohio State's athletic director. If you go to that, then it doesn't matter, right? You go ahead, lose 4 games. Doesn't matter. Ohio State will be in. But even with 16 teams, if you lose 3 and your name's Ohio State or Alabama or a name like that, you can lose 3 and you'll be included in pretty much every 16-team playoff with a 9-3 regular season. But it's tough sledding, man. It's tough sledding. Things are different. Now, as someone who loves big-time games, like I just want you to picture the difference here. We end this year before the game. I believe we have a 3-game stretch of UCLA, Rutgers, and Purdue or something like that, right? It's just 3 weeks in a row of total trash, which means after the Penn State game, it's another month before we got a game to get up for, right? An exciting game. And that's been notoriously like how it's been for us. It is no longer like that. When we look at that schedule next year, more than half of the weeks we are getting up for a massive game, like a really big game. And that to me is like, look, that's what I live for. That's going to be fantastic. But there's a lot more risk involved in it. There's a lot more risk, and you're going to go into the postseason much more beat up than you ever would before. So there's give and take. As a fan, though, it's going to be a hell of a lot more fun. All right, let's get to the over the weekend. I got a lot of tags, right? Now, many of you pointed out that I did an entire show ripping JD Pickle when he decided to make the decision to have Connor Stallions on his show for an hour and it had nothing to do with anything Connor Stallions did. It was just essentially trying to normalize him and talking football with Connor Stallions for an hour. And I did not like somebody using their platform to give this guy, remember the punishments hadn't even come out at the time, give this guy this platform just to like make him like, oh, look, he's just a normal guy like you and me talking ball. And that's the way it came out. And I thought it was horrible. And, I did a show saying that I disagreed. And over the weekend, if you didn't see, Josh Pate in his new partnership with the podcast Bustin' with the Boys, with Taylor Lewan, a Michigan grad, and Will Compton, a Nebraska grad, they all went to the Nebraska game and they did a live show. And while they're doing that live show, somebody's walking down the aisle with the sign that says Pate State. And they pull him up on stage, and it's Connor Stallions. And Pate's reaction to him was very warm. And apparently, he held up the sign and he said, this is a Stallions 101. Pate did, like a piece of art. And then he sat down on the couch and presumably, I imagine Stallions joined them for a little bit of the show. I don't know. I didn't see anything more than that. And anyway, a lot of people want me to look, if you're going to shred Pickle, why aren't you going to shred Pate? Well, I'm not going to shred Pate. I'm not happy with the decision. Like, I don't like him fraternizing with a guy who disrespected a game that we both love. That guy tainted the legacy of an entire program, an entire era, right? Like, he made this entire era for Michigan through the final period of Harbaugh. It's totally tainted. He made the greatest rivalry in all of sports a total cesspool for a couple of years, which still hasn't really come out of it. So I wish he hadn't done it. I wish he hadn't done that at all. But he was also very correct about the situation the entire time, where people like Pickle weren't. Pickle didn't want to see a punishment, and some Ohio State fans mistakenly thought that Josh said that. He didn't. He just said that there would be no punishment of consequence moving forward for Michigan, which he absolutely nailed. But he did say that not only were they guilty as hell, he said they all knew about it. Like, he said that from square one. Pickle downplayed it, acted like it wasn't a big deal, like Joel Klatt, like a lot of them. Josh wasn't on any of that. But the biggest part is loyalty. Look at Josh Pate. You guys all watch YouTube shows. This is a guy who you've probably seen pop up on your feed on 20 other different shows. And I don't mean big shows like his level. I mean, like little small creators. Tell me the last time you saw that happen to JD Pickle. You don't. And it's not because people don't ask. Josh has gone out of his way to help so many people in my position, like who are just starting out, who he can tell love college football. Like, that's just, no, I'm not going to shred him over that. I might tell him sternly, I don't really like that, but obviously I'm an Ohio State guy, so he knows nobody on this side of the fence is going to like that. Anyway, I'm sorry if you enjoyed the shredding of the Pickle. It's not coming for JP. Anyway, let's get to a couple of your comments before we call her a day. Ryan Day's Championship Beard says Washington State was running free in Washington's secondary. I don't have a problem there. I just want to see how our defense handles Washington's offense. Yeah, it's going to be a tough matchup. Now, the dude is quick as a hiccup. Obviously, we have seen in the first 3 games, Ohio State's gone against Arch, the Grambling kid, and Navarro, all running quarterbacks, and we saw how they defended. They got Arvell in a spiral, and definitely going to use him in that capacity again with Jonah. With Damon Williams. So I don't have much doubt that Arvell mano a mano is going to handle that. It's got to be very much disciplined football. Their run game features a lot of eye candy. They try to get your eyes going one way and get one little step on you. But it's going to be a heck of a contest. I don't think ultimately they have enough receiving weapons to challenge the secondary too much. I expect them to get off a little, right? I expect them to maybe score 24. And I think that the Buckeyes will need to score probably 28 to 35 to win this game, which is, not doesn't sound like too difficult of a task against that defense, but it's more the venue and everything going on. And if there's a turnover and the momentum of the crowd and stuff like that, there are some things there that are kind of scary. Billy McBride says Jonah Coleman rushed for 9 feet against the Ducks last year. I think Muhammad is a better back. Muhammad's really good. Adam, what's up, buddy? Adam thinks that Penn State is about to find out Oregon is winning by 10 or more. I'm with you. I don't know 10 or more, but I've got Oregon as the pick. Brandingo. Brandingo feels like we have the perfect equalizer for these scrambling quarterbacks. The linebacker core of Sonny and Arvell are able to cover, spy, and pass rush better than any linebacker duo we've had in a long time. I would say ever. But yeah, I'm with you. It is a nightmare for pretty much any defense, no matter what they're trying to do, because those guys are so versatile and they can do anything. Our buddy Chris Lane, thank you so much for the super chat, my man. I appreciate you so much, as always, every day. William De Silva, what's up, buddy? Good morning. That boy, there we go. That boy. A lot of people don't know that, Chris. I wrote that in my latest article over at BuckeyeHuddle.com when I was talking about the situation. That's Clemson. That's Dabo. Dabo is his younger brother used to call him that boy, and it sounded like Dabo. Yeah, he's hard to watch. Justin Fields broke Clemson for sure. And that catch was absolutely a fumble. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. We got a lot of comments here. Score predictions. We've got a couple here. We've got Oliver Truman, Ohio State 23, Washington 16. Mr. These Bucknuts 31-20 Bucks. Morning, Mika. Mika hates Dabo. Oregon has done no more real, just marginally better than Penn State. Yeah, that's true. That's true. They haven't done too much more, but boy, have they looked a lot better. Gary, just because you like Pate doesn't mean I do. No, you don't have to, but I'm not asking you to rip him apart. I recently read the term pickle puffer, which is when JD says good things about every team, no matter what, to get views, which is pretty accurate. Here's the most hilarious thing I saw this morning when I woke up. It was a thumbnail of JD Pickle's latest video, and it said, "I'm out." And guess who the picture was? Florida and Billy Napier. He's just now out. To your point, yes. He's been one of the guys that pumped that pickle for all this time. All right, my friends. I do appreciate you so much for joining me this morning on a special Monday morning live. And again, we'll be live again tonight at 8 p.m. on Buckeye Huddle Prime Time over on the Buckeye Huddle channel. You can also check me out over at BuckeyeHuddle.com, where we've got a new story about Ohio State and Washington, a big preview of the game. And again, I will see you tomorrow. We're doing a recruiting show here pretty soon. That'll probably drop tomorrow. But we got some interesting news. We do got a commit, and he is Angelo Smith. Angelo Smith out of Chaminade, Madonna, brother of Jeremiah Smith, a safety who honestly, he's got closing speed like Jalen McClain. He's got closing speed like Jalen McClain. He's got good instincts. He's just a little small. However, who's to say he doesn't hit a growth spurt, right? Who's to say? I'd put my money on that he does. Now he's currently listed at 5'10", and technically he's, a 3-star, but about, top 400 prospect. And that certainly could go up. But definitely a guy who can play. Is he really 5'10"? I'm not so sure he is. But super big closing speed. He loves to hit. He plays with a chip on his shoulder. And it's Jeremiah's brother, right? So you got to have him. You got to have him. Imagine if you turned him down and then he ended up being 6'2" and playing like Blaine Bradford out there, which I think he has in him if he grows. And I don't think it's too far-fetched to think that a 16-year-old will shoot up a couple, 3-4 inches. And all he really needs is 2 if he's really 5'10", which I'm not so sure about. Anyway, but we will talk more about that on that recruiting show. So look out for that. And appreciate you guys. Have a fantastic Monday, and I'll talk to you later. Jug and Bucks out. Hey, it's Jug. And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback. The truth is Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those. You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.